Okay, let's dive in.
Yeah.
We're unpacking a really universal tension today. It's something that, affects anyone who's ever tried to build something big. It's that friction between, like, soaring optimism and then just cold, hard reality. And we're using a very specific snapshot, December 16th, 2025, to really get into that dynamic.
It really is the story of this fundamental oscillation, where your belief just runs headlong into accountability.
Right.
If you've ever had that feeling, that push-pull between a brilliant idea and the sudden sobering dread of how you're actually going to do it, well, that's the energy we're talking about.
And our mission for you today, listening, is pretty critical. We want to show why confronting those limitations, that uncomfortable weight, is actually what you need for any kind of real, durable transformation.
Yeah, it's about how the obstacles you're facing right now are, and I'm quoting the source material here, shaping you into someone capable of handling what comes next.
So you need both. You need the confidence and the patience to get through a day like this.
To frame it, the sources point to two major celestial forces that are really defining the day. The first one, and it's the most immediate pressure, is Sun square Saturn.
Okay, the reality check.
The harsh reality check. This is the energy that brings in limits, it demands maturity, and it forces a confrontation with authority or just your own responsibilities. It's the gravity of consequence.
That's the weight. But, I mean, if that's all there was, the day would just be crushing.
It would be. But the sources also give us the lift. It comes later, emotionally, in the evening, and that's the Scorpio moon trine Jupiter.
Ah, okay. So that brings the emotional expansion,
Yeah.
the support.
Exactly. It's a profound revelation of the support that's actually there, and it's the return of a more mature, earned kind of faith.
So we have to look at them together. They don't cancel each other out.
Not at all. The weight makes sure your foundation is solid, and the lift gives you the emotional capacity to actually build on it. You can't skip the shaping process, even when it feels intensely frustrating.
Let's jump right into that pressure point then. The Sun square Saturn. The sources describe it less as a catastrophe and more as a turning point.
Yes. It's the moment where the universe basically asks you to prove it, to prove that what you're building is actually viable.
For the long term.
For the long term. This is where that tension between optimism and accountability becomes palpable. Optimism is the fuel, right? It says, yes, this is possible.
But Saturn is the inspector.
The quality control inspector, exactly. It wants the roadmap, the safety plan, the budget. It's asking, how specifically are you going to get there?
But isn't a reality check isn't that just a nice way of saying disappointment? Why is this pushback essential shaping instead of just bad news?
Because bad news just stops you cold.
Yeah.
This adjusts you. Saturn is saying that maturity means you have to have the humility to accept that some ideas are, structurally unsound.
Right.
The pressure makes you look at things you've been avoiding. Responsibilities need focus now. Boundaries need to be reinforced. And your framework has to be strong enough to hold up your future, not just the next step.
You see this pop up in ways that, we've all been there, right?
Yeah.
Deadlines suddenly get tighter, or a project that was going fine just hits a legal snag.
Or you realize that brilliant idea you had on the back of a napkin actually needs a really complicated structure to work.
This is where the confidence wobble starts.
Yeah.
That's what the sources call it.
That's the perfect phrase for it. You feel so inspired, you're ready to take a risk, and then that doubt creeps in. And the doubt isn't there because the dream is wrong.
It's because the dream has to be. What was the phrase?
Refined into something workable. The dream is colliding with physics.
It feels like hitting a wall or, facing consequences from choices you made months ago that you thought were gone.
You realize you were running on enthusiasm when you really needed blueprints.
So the key isn't to just spiral into fear.
No, the advice is very clear. Don't spiral adjust. Break the huge goal down into tiny, manageable tasks. Accept the limits without seeing them as a total failure of your whole identity.
Practical matters first.
You have to address them. You just can't afford to skip the groundwork, no matter how inspired you feel.
This all sounds like theory until it actually happens to you. Did the source give us a story for this? A concrete example of this confidence wobble?
They absolutely did. Our narrative for the day is called The Weight of Yes, and it brings this exact dynamic to life through a protagonist facing, a crisis of accountability.
It starts with that immediate pressure point. The 6:1 a.m. email. It just says, we need to talk today.
Ugh.
Yeah, that kind of email, especially when you know you're already on thin ice, That is the feeling of Sun Square Saturn hitting your inbox.
And the protagonist knows. They admit just to themselves that they let belief stand in for preparation. They thought their enthusiasm would somehow, protect them from the reality of actually doing the work.
They wanted the yes without earning the structure to hold it.
Which leads them straight into Martin's office. Martin is the authority figure, and his analysis is just clinical. It defines this whole deep dive. He says, brilliance without structure is risk. And risk without accountability is liability.
Wow. That's a powerful distinction.
It's huge because risk is part of anything ambitious. But when the protagonists missed deadlines, assumed they had permission, and made a budget that, and this is a quote, relied on hope.
They cross the line from risk into liability.
Exactly. Liability means the failure won't just hurt them, it'll hurt the whole organization.
So Martin is basically playing the part of Saturn. He's correcting the flight path before it's a total disaster. The consequence isn't getting fired, it's a probationary contract.
A clear message. You were, quote, measured and found unfinished. The dream wasn't rejected, but the foundation was.
So if we connect this back, Martin's actions aren't personal. It's not vengeance. It's just drawing a necessary line.
It's forcing growth, a change in method, not necessarily a change in vision.
But the protagonist isn't alone in this. The story brings in Tom, who's this grounding, supportive figure. His first move is just come home tonight, we'll talk. That's the emotional container starting to form.
Right. The support is there, but it doesn't mean you get to avoid the hard truth. Tom doesn't give him any easy platitudes. After he hears the whole story, he delivers this crushing but accurate insight. He says, you keep trying to outrun consequences, but I read the terms before I sign.
That line cuts deep. It's the difference between acting from, I guess, blind faith thinking you can outsmart reality and acting from this informed, measured confidence.
Where you actually understand the terms of engagement, and then just when the accountability hits from inside the company and an external threat shows up.
The man from the street.
Yeah.
In the rain. With an envelope. This is where the story really ramps up the pressure.
And the contents are just terrifying. Photographs, screenshots, deleted emails, all this evidence of ambition left exposed. Someone was watching the flaws in the structure for months.
And the protagonist immediately gets it. This isn't just blackmail. A demand for money.
Right. Tom thinks it's blackmail. But the protagonist knows the difference. They say this is leverage. The demand wasn't for cash. The demand was structural. It was comply or collapse, adjust the project, shift the blame.
So the day starts with Saturn demanding structural accountability from within in Martin's office.
And it ends with an external threat forcing a structural change from the outside. But both forces are asking for the same thing.
A painful, immediate adjustment to the foundation.
Which brings us perfectly to the emotional synthesis of the day. This comes in the evening with the Scorpio moon trine Jupiter. After all that confrontation, this aspect provides the lift, the support you see in Tom.
And what's interesting about a Scorpio moon is it's not superficial comfort. Scorpio energy deals with the dark stuff, the hidden things, the intensity.
Exactly. And Jupiter expands whatever it touches. So when they align like this, you get this emotional expansion, the sense that even the darkest feelings can be held within a larger container of meaning.
So you're not denying how intense the day was. You're just contextualizing it.
That's the difference between naive faith and mature faith. Naive faith just believes bad things won't happen. Mature faith, well, it trusts that when they do happen, the lessons and the support structures that show up are ultimately serving a higher purpose. It trusts the process.
Even when the process feels like a demolition?
Especially then.
Let's pause there, this idea of mature faith, because that feels like the real pivot point for anyone listening. What does that kind of informed, measured confidence actually look like?
It looks like acknowledging the pain without letting it define your future. It's the realization that, transformation and healing are happening, even if you can't see the proof right away.
The instruction from the source is to feel both the weight and the lift.
Right. Neither cancels out the other. Both are true. The pressure is what creates the diamond, but that emotional support is the buffer that keeps you from shattering completely.
So the weight of Saturn is the rigid framework, the container. And the lift of Jupiter is the expansive meaning, the faith that fills that container and gives it purpose.
Absolutely. The weight is what gives the lift its focus, its durability.
Okay, so after all of this, the internal reckoning, the external threat, the emotional synthesis, what does the protagonist actually do? How does this all translate into action?
Well, after a sleepless night, we see the resolution. And they don't run. They don't try to make some backroom deal. They go right back to Martin's office, unannounced, and they choose complete transparency.
They choose accountability. They revise the whole framework themselves.
Yeah.
Full transparency, new timelines, independent oversight. They're basically imposing the structure on themselves that Martin was trying to force on them.
And they know the cost. That's the critical piece. When Martin says, that will cost you time, reputation, resources, the protagonist just meets his gaze and says, I know.
That's the moment they earn their yes. They choose accountability over that reckless, immediate gain.
They pay the weight voluntarily. And by doing that, they convert the liability back into manageable risk.
Which allows the project to survive, even though it's smaller and totally reshaped. And in reflecting on it all, the protagonist gives us the ultimate insight.
It's the perfect summary. I nearly lost everything because I wanted the yes without earning it. The whole experience forced them to understand what true, mature confidence actually is.
And this is it. This is the aha moment, the definition that the whole deep dive has been leading to.
It's the understanding that confidence was not the absence of limits. It was knowing which ones would keep me alive.
Wow. Yeah. That just reframes our entire relationship with limits. They're not barriers to ambition. They're the architecture of durability. We see things like deadlines or oversight as this frustrating pushback. But this shows that they're actually the foundation for any kind of lasting, protected ambition.
It's the difference between building something that collapses in the first strong wind and building something designed to last for decades. The protagonist realized some doors were closed because the structural integrity just wasn't there yet. They stopped trying to force their way in and started building a doorway that could actually walk through with confidence.
So for you, the listener, here's something to ponder as you think about this. If you analyze a recent no or a forced adjustment in your own life, that feeling of hitting a wall, how did that limit, which probably felt like failure at the time, ultimately serve to protect or redefine your ambition? Where did the necessary weight give you the foundation for the lift that came later?